This is Today's Business Leaders. Actionable advice from real-world professionals. And now here's your host, Gabe Arnold.
All right, today I have Joe Giglietti. Did I say it right? I forgot to ask.
It's okay. It rhymes with spaghetti. It's Giglietti, like a spaghetti. It's good. Yes.
Got it. And he is from Exponential Referrals. So I'm super excited to have you on the show today, Joe. Thanks for taking some time with us.
Yeah, man, it's my pleasure. You guys are doing great things.
Awesome. So I only have one scripted question, which if you watch the show, everybody knows. And then the rest of it is we just kind of figure it out along the way, which is my life. But, but my first question for you is, when did you first realize that you were an entrepreneur?
Ooh, that's a good one. Okay. I was gonna go to law school, and I was working at a law firm, and I saw what the investors were doing. Like, they were making, in my mind, a lot of money at that point, $15,000, $20,000 flipping these houses from the foreclosures. And they were calling me to like take care of all the dirty work kind of thing. And I was like, I could do that. And so I was like, So I just started doing that to quote unquote pay for law school. And then I was like, why am I going to go to law school and work for somebody 60 hours a week when I could just do this myself? So it was over. Like, from then on. So as soon as I got out of college, I lasted about 2 months at a quote unquote real job, and then told them to go pound sand and did it on my own.
That's awesome. So do you hang out in Bigger Pockets at all?
No, not so much. Not so much. That was the early phases. That was pre-Facebook days, 2003, when that happened for me. So yeah, but we started our first company, and in my first year with a partner, we did over $500,000 in sales our first year, which was great. And then, and so then I kind of fell in love with real estate. And then in 2007, I fell out of love with real estate.
I think a lot of people did.
Yes. And then I fell in love with marketing, and that's never changed. So, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. I it's been a few years now. I can't remember. Like 2 or 3 years ago, or maybe 4 years ago, I flipped a few houses and had a lot of fun doing it. Everybody else made money, but me. I didn't lose too much, but it was a fun experience. I think I lost like $6,000 in 2 years, so it wasn't too bad. But
no, that's not too bad.
So cool. So you realize that college isn't for you because you can make money faster, elsewhere, and then you move into real estate. And then you said you kind of got into marketing. So obviously during the housing market crash, I lost a huge construction company. We were doing millions, and I went from millions to broke in like 90 days. Somewhere around there. And so I know how that feels like. What was the transition then? Obviously that shut down real estate or hurt real estate. And then how did you switch over to marketing? Because now I'm sure it seems easy, but that seems to me like a pretty big jump from one industry to another.
Yeah. So it was just survival, to be perfectly honest. We started a nonprofit, and so I focused on nonprofit stuff, but I still had to feed the family, and nonprofits sometimes don't pay. In my case, they didn't. It was always me pouring into the nonprofit. So we started a nonprofit, and I just flipped houses, wholesaled houses on the side, and I started listening to a show called I Love Marketing, which is a great podcast on marketing. Not to push any other podcasts, but I'm sure you podcast listeners listen to other podcasts. Yeah.
No,
and so so I cut my teeth on I Love Marketing and Dean Jackson and Joe Polish, and tried some stuff. And what do you know it? Like, over 100 people showed up in an open house of a house I was flipping. So I'm like, this is cool. And so from then on, pretty much every house I tried to sell, I sell in 5 days, just using marketing. Right. And it was like, this is cool. Now, I did the thing most entrepreneurs do, just to keep it real on here. And once I found something that worked, I refused to do that anymore. Right. I had to find something else that I didn't know how to do to try and conquer. Right. And so, lots of struggles during those nonprofit days. But we were living our vision. We were living our passion. We were helping teens. And marketing just came to the rescue when all of a sudden I needed money, and it had to happen. Somehow I'd pull out an old marketing trick and do it. And who would have thought to do that multiple times a month instead of just when, there's an emergency. But nevertheless, that's the life of an entrepreneur sometimes.
Let's dig into that, because I've never heard anybody put it like that, but I totally understand what you mean. So you said, like, it worked, so of course you didn't do it again. So what happens in our head? Because I've done that many times. What happens in our head? or because you've identified it, you're pretty objective about what happened there. I don't think a lot of people are. What happens that we're like, oh, that works so great. Now let me go break something else instead of using this again.
Yes. Let's go do something I don't know how to do. I think there's a natural tendency in entrepreneurs to want to conquer. I think there's a lot of ADD among most entrepreneurs. I've been accused of that. I feel like I'm very focused when I find something I want to focus on.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, like creativity and that desire to conquer and succeed, it's like there's always another mountain. And I really didn't break through that. I looked at my life from the time I started the nonprofit until really the beginning of 2017, when my wife basically like grabbed me and was like, you are going to do one thing and nothing else, because everything you try to do, you actually do it and then you stop and then you try something else. And I don't care if you're bored. I don't care if you don't like to do it. You are going to freaking focus on one thing and show me that you can do it, that you can do crazy things if you focus. And I'm like, okay, yeah, blah, 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 blah. But I did. And that's really when I had the breakthrough, right? And we're still in the middle of that breakthrough, which is really exciting. But I think, yeah, one is the ADD thing. Two is the desire to conquer and have the new things. And in today's world, there's so much to learn. And most entrepreneurs love learning. And so every time there's a new thing to learn that comes up on our feed, we chase it. And then we think, oh, I could use that. And then we whiteboard it all out to show all the things that we could do with that, right? And we see the possibilities, right? And as we're seeing that possibility, we mix it with another possibility of the other thing that we saw. And nobody's ever thought of this before, and blah, 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 blah. And what if I do this and that? When the fact of the matter is, it doesn't have to be that complicated. Just like get your offer out to more people a day, and you'll probably be making more money than sitting there whiteboarding, right?
All right in the last line there. Yeah, just get your offer in front of more people,
Yes.
Good. And I think you're right. I think it's definitely, I think the three things that you said that stand out to me are totally been true for me, and I'm slowly getting better at focusing. This is the longest podcast I've ever done. It's the third time I've tried to do a podcast.
Nice.
But obviously ADD, but not in the like mental deficiency way that like obviously some people really struggle with real ADD, but we just are excited about new ideas, which appears like ADD, or maybe it is ADD, but we definitely have that. And then learning, like I could just sit and learn all day and that would be the greatest day of my life, but I do have to run my business too.
Yes.
And then, yeah, just like the ability to focus in, it is tough because I don't know, I guess that's just the way we're wired, but it's really cool to hear you say, like, you kind of had your come to Jesus moment with your wife, and she's like, you can't do that anymore. And
right.
And I've never had anybody do that to me. Maybe somebody should have a long time ago, but but like slowly I've realized the only thing that helped me like not just careen all over the place like I've done for years is having a real strong like understanding of my time and the value of time. And the more that I focused on that, the more I was able to like focus in on realizing that I only have so much time and I need to really budget it like I budget my money or like I budget anything else, and then focus in on what's truly important to me and leave the other stuff as, secondary or hobby stuff. So, but.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is like, look at the possibilities. I was reading a book at the end of 2016, and it was part of the jolt that helped me kind of get past myself and my own good desires. It's good to learn. It's good to be creative. It's good, all that stuff, but it was getting in the way of just, and the book said, it was a book by Tim Ferriss, Tools of Titans. And it was Peter Thiel, who's the founder of PayPal and several other big companies.
Yeah.
And they were talking about how billionaires think differently. And it really grabbed me. Normally I like to read the whole book, like, yeah, I conquered the book. And it was one of those times where you read a book and somebody says something, and I literally slammed the book shut, because it was just like, okay, I just need to think about this, right?
Yeah.
And Peter Thiel said, what is your 10-year dream? What is your 10-year goal? Like, what would be awesome for you to do in 10 years? Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about that. And then he said, he's like, the way billionaires think is they look at that 10-year goal and they ask themselves, what would it take for me to do that in 6 months?
I remember reading that part.
Yes. And I was like, because I'm always telling my daughter, for those of you who don't know, my daughter is a famous kid entrepreneur. She speaks all over the world with big shot business people because she wrote her own book on how to have the perfect sleepover and went door to door and sold $20,000 in copies, right? And super cool. So, what I'm always telling her is the world is changing, and the world isn't going to look like it does right now in 20 years because it's changing at such a rapid pace. And I always tell her anything is possible now. Well, when I read that from Peter Thiel, it was like I was like having to take my own medicine. Yeah. And it was like, well, why haven't I hit that goal yet? Like, what's happened that makes that impossible for me, but possible for other people? Why do I believe the identity of who I am instead of the identity of my potential, my possibility?
Yeah.
And it rocked me, right? And it was just like, and I think sometimes in the midst of all that learning, the fun and everything else, it's there's an opportunity cost to that.
Yeah.
Right? And there's possibilities and potential in each of our lives that you may be able to look at and say, man, I could be doing this, but because I'm having so much fun learning or trying new things, I'm not living life to my fullest potential. And how is that, just when you start asking yourself the question, like, how is that affecting my kids? And what does this show them about what life looks like? And I tell them they can do anything, but why am I not doing anything? Right. And it's like, not that I wasn't doing anything, but you know what I mean? Like anything at that level, at that level of like desire. Right.
Yeah.
And so, it rocked me. So that's another part of it.
One of the things that helped me focus in more, like we were talking earlier about like eliminating all the distractions and our bad habits, is like I hired like a $350 an hour time management coach, not because I don't know how to manage time, but because I wanted to force myself to think about my time. That's why I hire coaches, just to make me work.
Yeah.
And after like 4 months, I was like, I really had a strong grasp of like living in the moment and understanding time in like a different way. And then realizing that if I spend time on fun things that aren't moving me forward, then it's, then I'm costing my dream, which, I have huge aspirations and big goals too and everything. And so I love how you kind of tied that in with what was in the book. And it's like, why can't we do this in 6 months? It's because we fill our lives with like stupid stuff that doesn't matter. So you have a big aha moment, you slammed the book shut, and you actually, I'm assuming you went out and did something about it instead of just reading the book. Like a lot of us like to finish the book. I'm all about finishing books too, so I totally understand that. From there, that's end of 2016. Kind of give us the overview of what's happened to where you are today, because it sounds like with a little bit of focus, you've kind of blown it up.
Yeah, it was exciting. I mean, I'm in the real estate's my background, as I told you. So, and I love marketing. So I started a digital marketing agency in January. So I read that in December and was like, I'm going all in on marketing. And I started doing kind of the normal thing. I was making I caught the problems faster, but I started by helping. I'm like, okay, who am I going to help? And I was like, I'll help anybody. I'll help financial planners. I'll help people do this. I help people do that. And it's like, I did good. Like I got focused, and I realized one of the first things you want to do, just to help everybody out there, this was a game changer for me, is you want to get really clear. And by the way, Russell Brunson told me this when I was meeting with him, and my daughter was on a show and stuff like that. He was like, Joe, you have to have KPIs, key performance indicators in your business. He's like, for us, it's leads per day. You have to figure out what it was for you. And for me, I was like, you know what? I just need appointments. I need appointments to talk with people who want to multiply their business. And so that became my goal. If I got 5 appointments a day, I know I could sell one a day, right? And if it's $1,000 to $2,000 package, that'll start me on the path to get to where I want to go. So I put 100% of my focus on getting 5 appointments a day, right? I think almost anybody in any business, depending on the level that you're at, it may be 5 a day or it may be 5 appointments a day per salesperson who's on your team, whichever it is, like that's pretty solid, right? That'll get almost anybody through to the next level.
Yeah.
And so I think one of the things though that we do, especially when we're starting, is we're working in this poverty mindset when we begin something. If we don't have a lot of capital to begin a business, you're like, okay, so what I was doing was I was spending $20 a day in ads. And for whatever reason, I assumed that I could get an appointment for $4 per appointment. Oh my gosh. So
I wish.
yes, I was wrong. but nevertheless, I started. So what was happening is every day I'd spend $20 and then I make adjustments. I'm like, oh, I didn't get, and then, I only got one. Oh man, that sucks, and then, and I'm like, and so, couple days in, it's probably like 2 or 3 weeks into it, not hitting my numbers. I realize it's the KPI. I'm not talking to enough people. The people I'm talking to are in multiple categories. So then what I did is I said, I'm a smart dude. Why don't I I don't have 200, but I'm going to go ahead and spend 200. That way, as soon as it gets to 20, I'll just turn it off and I can readjust until I get this thing working. That way I don't have to wait a day every time, right? I'm crunching the time down.
Right.
Well, so I put in $200 and you know what happened? I forgot. I totally forgot I did that. ADD kicked in. And the next morning I woke up with like 4 or 5 appointments and I was like, oh, it worked. And then I looked at the Facebook ad account and I was like, oh, I spent $200. I'm like, my wife's going to kill me. So I was like, oh my gosh, I got to sell some of these or she's going to kill me. Right. So, I ended up selling like 2 or 3 that day and they were like $1,500 packages a piece. And I'm like, I should spend $200 again. You know what I'm saying? Like I should kind of keep this rolling, like, duh. So it turned out it was closer to like $35 to $50 appointment once it was dialed in, not 20, but you work in this poverty mindset where you're doing it. And it's the same thing with my coaching clients. It's like, they're always trying to, because I help other people who are trying to start agencies for real estate agents. And they're always trying to like improve the number, like the cost per lead, get it farther down. If I could just win, yes, the margins and the margins. And it's like, you're starting a business. Like if it costs you $500 to acquire a client, so what? If it's a $1,500 client recurring monthly, like, yes. Yeah. You need volume of customers, not efficiency on your margins. Right. And so many people, like they focus on the wrong thing because that's everybody brags. Oh man, I got an appointment for this and that. And it's like, that becomes the standard when really the standard is how much money you have coming in every month. And, are you cash flow positive, obviously?
Right.
I mean, as you know, many marketers teach you can go up to, I could spend $1,500 for a $1,500 customer so that the next month I'm break even, I'm passing every month after that I keep them, I'm making money. Mm-hmm. So that was a big thing. But nevertheless, once you figure out appointments, the next challenge that starts, and I don't know, do you agree that for most businesses, this is the case? You need people to talk to, right?
That's all you need. So however you can get it done, that's all you need.
Right. And then once you have them to talk to, then the next problem comes up because it's like, there's always the next battle, right?
That's right.
And so the next battle becomes, everybody was saying yes to me, but the vast majority were not paying me, right? They were like, yeah, we're going to do it, right? I'm like, cool, here's the link, and like, the next day they're not answering the phone, right? And I'm just like, oh my gosh, what am I doing wrong? So what I learned was, and I realized it, and it was really hard for me because I've done multi-million-dollar real estate deals before this and stuff, and so I felt like I had a good handle on the basic skills. And I'm looking and I'm like, these people I'm selling them, but I'm not closing them, right?
Big difference.
And that is a gap. Like that most people don't even realize. So basically I picked up Grant Cardone and I'm just like, okay, what do I need to do to make sure that I'm taking this to the close, right?
Yeah.
And so I started just writing down all the objections that was coming up and then how I would overcome them and just getting more intentional about it at the end of the call, like helping the people. Because I know if they take it, they get good results, but there's fear or whatever was happening, right? And so that was the next big journey. Well, as soon as I started doing that, well, boom, all of a sudden things started closing. And then I ran in. Have you ever heard the phrase, you're only one funnel away?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're one funnel away. And I was like, I had my funnel. Like my funnel worked. And I'm like, cool, I'm a millionaire, right? The problem was as soon as I got like 20 clients, I was like, I am overwhelmed, right? And I've got too many different kinds of businesses. And I thought about like, I got to hire somebody. And I'm like, how am I going to explain to them the difference between a chiropractor, a financial planner, a real estate agent, a guy who's selling an info product? And you know what I'm saying? Like I was too many directions and I was back to the focus problem, just at another level. I had a serious time problem because I was the only guy who could help them. I wasn't creating a business. I was creating a job.
Yeah.
Right.
The worst when you realize that.
Oh my gosh. Yes. So I'm like, well, who am I going to help? And so I finally focused in and decided on real estate agents. A lot of reasons why I did that, but nevertheless, had to start firing other clients, taking on real estate agents and stuff like that. And then there's a whole, like I've got all kinds of little goodies that I could share on that whole journey. But we went from 0 to 80 clients in our first year, which was awesome. My problem was I couldn't hire fast enough to take care of the clients who were coming in.
Yeah.
That's actually why I started a coaching company, so that if I got clients, I could give them to my coaching clients or help them do it, and at least have another revenue stream while I try and build up my own business and handle more employees and stuff like that. And so that's kind of how I solved that step of it. Anyways, yeah, I'm going on a long soliloquy here, but that was the early journey. So
very cool. Yeah, I think I love what you were talking about with like that poverty mindset, because we all struggle with that, and we try to like deal with the margin of the margins, and it's like, can you improve that stuff? Absolutely. Will it take a ton of time? Yep. And what will be the result? You'll make like an extra $100 a month if you're lucky.
Right.
And then you wasted all that time where you could just be out spending the right amount of money and closing deals and focusing on the important stuff. It's so funny how we can get sucked into stupid stuff like that.
Yep, absolutely. As a matter of fact, well, two things. One is I was reading Warren Buffett at the end of last year, his biography.
And, I just read that too. Phenomenal.
Did you? Oh, yes. And I had this huge epiphany when I was watching it. It was during the time when all the cryptocurrency craze was going, and so everybody was talking about crypto in like December. And so there was crypto going on. Everybody's bragging about the returns they're getting on crypto, and I'm thinking, man, I almost always get 5 to 10 times ROI on Facebook ads. Why? Like, so what? Like I could do that in like a week or two, right? And then repeat. And then a couple questions came up as soon as I said that to myself, like, oh yeah, I'm better than crypto, right? All of a sudden I was like, wait a second. I was like, what if I thought about my marketing agency as a hedge fund, like Warren Buffett? And I was reading Ray Dalio at the same time, who obviously also has a big, so I was thinking through hedge funds, right, from both these guys' perspectives. I said, if I thought about my marketing agency as a hedge fund, and I thought about Facebook as my stock market, how does that change the way that I look at it? And so I realized that Warren Buffett, like you just read it, so back in the 50s and stuff when he was running stuff, he was getting, in general, when you averaged everything out, 30, 40% returns kind of thing, right? There were some businesses he bought and did, 10,000% returns and stuff like that. But overall, it was like 30, 34, there were some years, high 20s, right? And he writes his letter. And I was looking at that and I was like, like when you look at it over time, he pretty much did about 30 something % a year, high 20s, right?
Right.
And then I'm thinking, well, nothing changed there. How did he become a billionaire? Well, the answer is he had more money that he was managing. The more people heard that he did a good job, the more people wanted to put their money with him, right? And then he also reinvested the profits, which built the money under management. And I'm thinking, if you apply that to a digital marketing agency, as long as you're good, right, where you're getting, say, a 30% return when the market's used to 10, right? Or you're getting leads at $5 when the market's used to 30, right?
Right.
Improving the percentage isn't what moves the business forward. Improving the amount of money under management is what moves the business forward, right? And so many people focus on improving the percentages when really the thing that's going to move the business is improving is to improve the money under there. That's marginal, but you can go to infinity, right, with the number of people that you're helping doing it once as you're figuring out scale and employees and all that other kind of stuff. And so that really helped me.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way. What a great way to look at it. Because that book, the big takeaway for me out of it, it was the snowball. I'm assuming it's the same one, right?
Yeah.
The big takeaway for me, similar mindset, different application, is like when he found something that he thought was of value, he never gives up on it. Like maybe not never, but like he really has long suffering and patience. And so it really helped me shift my mindset with departments I'm building out in my company or team members or things like that, and just thinking long term. Like that was the big takeaway for me, is like thinking long term with it. And what you just said is phenomenal. I mean, you're totally right. It's like instead of trying to, you can only push your margin so high. You can only get so good. There's a cap. There's a normal cap, and then you can get another couple points if you're phenomenal, but there's no value there. Whereas if you just bring in a bunch more money, clients or who you're helping, that if you scale, that's where the money is. And that's one of the things that's always driven me to basically commoditize all the services that we offer. Instead of following a traditional agency model, I productize everything I can, because then I can scale it so easy. So that's really interesting perspective. I never thought about how to just flip it over to be how to apply it in a marketing agency.
Well, I think it's true for every business too, because here's the thing. So many business owners, like I work with real estate agents predominantly, right? And so for most real estate agents, they don't really they've never really thought through how much am I willing to spend to get, say, $1 million in closings.
Right.
And so they're kind of just looking at everybody wide-eyed, like, what can you do for me? And this person's like, well, I can get you leads for, $3 a piece, right? And Zillow's like, hey, I can get you, exposure. So you see, and they're trying to figure out what the cost is, not even knowing like what the cost should be, which was my problem early on.
Right.
Trying to get appointments for $5 a piece, right? When really appointments, the industry standard is $100 to $150 in marketing spend to get an appointment, right?
Yeah.
Yes, we're crushing that. That's great. But nevertheless, like knowing the standards.
Yeah.
And so like, if you're a business owner and you're watching this, like what should the standard be for you to get a customer? Like what's actually doable? And so when I made this mistake, literally, once I started my agency, 6 months in, I was ready to do what I'm doing right now, which will actually help us close over $1 billion in real estate in 2018. I was doing what I'm doing now, but I had my mind imprisoned me. My beliefs about what I needed to do imprisoned me. I'll tell you what I mean. Once we started helping agents, we realized they weren't good at converting the leads, right? Once you get leads, your next problem is actually getting in conversation with those leads. And then once you're in conversation, it's like getting an appointment with those leads, right? And so there's a process. And it wasn't just that they weren't good. It's that what we realized is we were giving them too many, right? Most agents can handle about 50 leads a month. We were giving them 200, right? How do they deal with that, right? They were just overwhelmed. And so then they didn't value any of them. We call them once and just move on and never kind of touch them again. Anyway, so we're looking at this, and for a while we thought it was us. So we tested everything, and we realized we did our own thing, and we spent $600 and got $60,000 in GCI from $600. So literally 100 times ad spend when we tested it and did the follow-up ourselves. And we're like, okay, it's not the leads, right? It's just the process that's happening on the back end. I'm telling you this for a reason. This isn't about me. This is about like the learning curve. So we started looking at, how do we convert the leads to appointments on behalf of the agents so that they don't even have to deal with leads? They only deal with appointments. And for whatever reason, I still can't tell you where it came from. And this is the point.
Yeah.
I was like, if I could convert 5% of my leads to scheduled appointments with the agents, I'd be the mama pajama. I'd be the king of the hill. I'd be the master of disaster. I'd be the greatest, and I'm like, this is what I need to do, right? I need to get to 5%. And so I'll grab my coaching group. I'm like, all right, here's what we're doing. We're going to get to 5% conversion. Now, the thing in real estate is most of the internet leads don't close for 8 months, right? They start looking for a house 6 months out because it's a huge investment, right?
Yeah.
For most of them, the biggest investment they make. So how do we get 5%? So I start doing it. And there's some accounts we got them to 5%, but it always took our personal involvement, like me jumping into Messenger and like converting them and stuff like that. And of course that's not scalable. And so I'm trying. Anyways, in about December, I'm still trying to do this. I'm like, man, we get 2-3%. And I talked to this guy who talks to me. He's like, I'm doing the same thing you are, which nobody's doing the same thing. And I thought, and turns out he was. I mean, he was closing like $20 million in sales in LA and just crushing it, just making tons of money on it. And he had this whole process. I won't bore you with that. But anyways, I tell him 5%. I'm just trying to get to 5%. And he laughs and he says, why are you trying to get to 5%? And I'm like, well, it's a good number. He's like, well, yeah, it is a good number. He's like, but do you know what our percentage of conversion is right now? I'm like, what? He's like, we're between 1% to 2%. And I'm like, so all of a sudden I pull it out, right? I go pull up the spreadsheet. I pull it all out and I realize I could close 1/2 of 1% of all the leads that we're generating at our highest cost per lead that we allow. And we would literally be making 20 to 40 times our investment every time the real estate agent does it. And I was just like, for 6 months, I was goofing around with an efficiency where I was already performing at a level that was far better than what was expected in the marketplace. So now we just tell agents, hey, for every $2,000 you spend, you'll close at least $1 million in real estate. You don't even have to pay us until a deal closes. That's how we set it up for them. So it's like, it's a no-brainer for them. So they're just like, cool, like, whatever.
Wow.
But anyways, the point with that is that over the progression, many times the limitation of you going to the next level is going to be the limitations you've set in your own mind, the standard you've set in your mind, and really knowing what those numbers should be. And that's really boring to talk about, like, know your numbers, right? But for real, like, it took me 6 months to break through it when I was already there.
Wow, that's an amazing example. You're totally right. That's crazy. Like, that's insane. And now you just let it go and trying to get to somewhere where maybe you could get, maybe you just let it go, and now you're blowing it up, right?
Well, here's what happens. Now that I've let it go, right, and we're just bringing in hundreds of clients, it gives us more ad spend where we're already at that 1 to 2% conversion rate, and we can continually test new things to improve that efficiency. But I use this phrase a lot. I always say effectiveness before efficiency. Because if you try to get to efficiencies, you're piddling around with this stuff, right? That you may not even be possible to get to. But if you just focus on effectiveness, if I can get a client for $500 and they pay me $1,000, that's effective. Would it be great if I could do that for $200? Sure, and maybe I'll get there one day, right? But that's the things that stop people, and they're unwilling to spend the next thing until they get to this mystical dream that they created that isn't even real. When their business can soar right now, they're just not allowing it to.
What you just covered, when everybody listens to this, you should pause and go back and re-listen to what Joe just said, because that is a multi-billion-dollar concept.
Yes.
That's insane, man. I have never thought about it that way.
The margins that Fortune 500 companies run on are absolutely amazing to me. I mean, my daughter actually just pitched the president of Southwest Airlines and coming to speak and got the deal, which is pretty impressive for a 13-year-old.
Oh my God, that's so cool. I got to have her on the show.
Yeah, you can absolutely. But she when you look at Southwest Airlines or other airline companies, right? Most people are scared to get into airlines because the margins on airlines are like 5%. Zillow. Most people don't know this. Zillow brings in, I think, close to $4 billion a year now in revenue. Do you know how much money they netted last year? Zillow, right? You're not huge, like a huge realtor type guy that I know of, but right. But nevertheless, they netted $9 million off of $4 billion in sales, right? So, guys, Twitter just had their first most profitable quarter, right? And you're worried about the fact that you're not getting 10x on your investment.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy. So effectiveness. So you realize after 6 months of doing the wrong thing, which that's pretty fast, let's be honest.
Thank you.
My life,
I feel like an idiot, but thank you.
No, I mean, that's ridiculously fast. So now you spend 6 months trying to solve something, and then somebody points it out to you, which is the only way I learn anything, because in my own head I'm an idiot a lot of times. Somebody points out to you that your conversion is great, and then you let go of that. And then you mentioned something really, really cool, like focus on effectiveness, not efficiency. That's awesome. Never heard that. So now having a great 6 months, little bit of discomfort learning situation, which is always good to keep it stuck in our mind, right? Now, how do you convert? Now you understand that at a new level. What's been the other impact? Because the easy takeaway for marketers or business owners or whatever is like, just spend the money to get the customer. Like, don't overthink that stuff and like focus on effectiveness. How have you taken that principle? I'm assuming you have, into other areas and focusing on effectiveness.
What do you mean by other areas? What do you mean? Other areas in the business, you mean? Or in life?
Other areas in the business and in life. Because like once you realize that that you were already effective with your leads and you were fine, so I'm assuming that opened up other windows and doors for you.
It's constantly reappearing, and I see it, and it's why I'm mentioning it, because like I said, I see it so much in coaching clients who are just working on efficiencies and just thinking about, like, if I succeed at the task that I'm trying to work on right now, best case scenario, how does that really play out at the end of the day? How does that affect the business? Am I really working on something that's moving it forward? Or do I even need that? I mean, for example, I'm running almost everything on Facebook. That's scary because there's one traffic source, right? Yeah. That's always something that you want to look at. However, trying to figure it all out using YouTube or LinkedIn right now, that's a side thing, but that's not what's going to drive my business right now. What's going to drive my business is more clients that I'm helping, right? And so just recognizing that, and that, I don't think that's a perfect example because I like the idea of having multiple traffic sources. But like, for example, many times I have a an ad that I give to my coaching clients for them to get real estate clients. And I just give it to them and they just run it, right? And it costs about $100 to $200 for us to acquire a customer right now. Well, over the course of a year, we'll probably make them, $500,000 or so from all the real estate stuff that they close. And then we make a percentage of that on the back end. That's how we get paid. Well, the point is many times the coaching clients will be working on like a free email organic campaign. And I'm like, yeah, you might be able to acquire a customer again for less than $100 or $200, but how much time and effort did that take you? Whereas you could just, like, for me, here's how customer acquisition, or at least appointment acquisition, should look for just about every business on the planet now. Like, it should be like you touch a button that turns an ad on Facebook and bling, every day new appointments show up, right? Like, if you don't have that, that's the effectiveness you need. Your other option is to go knock door to door, pass out flyers, maybe direct mail, but direct mail can be a button push too. Once you've created it, you can just be like, send the email like, hey, blah, blah, blah. But whatever it is, if you don't have the system to move those people to the next step of the process, that's the effectiveness you need. Doesn't matter what the cost is early on, as long as you can get to break even or more. But that, again, we focus on the wrong things. So for me, it's just, I'm overly focused on revenue, sometimes to the detriment of operations. And so then here's a good one that I heard, and many people focus on how to do something. And it was Harvey Mackay, who I heard this from, who started multiple 100 million plus businesses, crazy business leader, read his books. But he said one of the most prolific things I've ever heard in business, which was most people focus on how, and you need to turn that around, rearrange the letters, because the real question about really being effective in business and taking it to the next level, once you've figured out marketing, right? Once you know that you can do that, the question doesn't become how, the question becomes who. Who is the most important question? Who is going to do it? Who is going to handle that? Because every time you're handling it, if you're the business owner, right, there's a small number of things that you should be focused on and handling and creating. Yeah. And the real question becomes who. And I think that's my personal growth curve right now, like handling who. And for us, what we've done, because we had a hard time handling employees and like bringing in employees locally, we actually started a coaching group so that that can do what we do, so that we can, when we're overloaded with business, which we are, we show them how to get the business and handle it, and then work together as joint venture partners. So we solved that by finding people to partner with and do rev shares and stuff like that. There's a lot of ways to handle that. You may be able to do it with employees, but the point is the most important question once you're at that place is who. Who's gonna take over? Who's gonna make these sales calls? Who can close the deals like I can? Well, nobody, because I'm the owner of the company. But who can be close enough, right? Right. And so who becomes the next? Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah.
Very cool. Awesome. Well, this has been absolutely fantastic, Joe. So I appreciate all the time and input, and I mean, you've given incredible value to everybody that's listening. So just amazing. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
What's the easiest way for people to get a hold of you and kind of follow what you're up to right now?
Yeah, so if you're an agent following, I would recommend you go to exponentialreferrals.com. That's referrals in the plural. And that's where you can find out about just getting business referred to you. You only pay if you get results. And then if you're interested in being a digital marketer helping real estate agents, go to billionsinrealestate.com. Or you can always find me on Facebook, but my name's impossible to spell. So hopefully you'll spell it right.
I'll put the I'll put the links in so everybody can follow you there too. So awesome.
Okay.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. I'd love to have you back again in a few months and see where everything's at as well. So, all right.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
You've been listening to Today's Business Leaders with Gabe Arnold. Remember to subscribe on iTunes. For more information, visit todaysbusinessleaders.com.